Good afternoon, everyone. I'm coming with a vlog today. And I do some regular vlogs, but I actually wanted, I was thinking about doing this in a blog post, but I actually wanted to do this in a vlog post um, to kind of show some of the seriousness and importance I think is involved in this issue. I am a kind of a advocate for people who are in need for emotional abuse. I'm a victim of emotional abuse and actually an overcomer of it, um, having been in a 12-year relationship that involved emotional abuse. And for many people, this is not a serious issue. But today I want to come to you to talk about this in all seriousness. Is that emotional abuse is where all abuse begins. And if we took emotional abuse actually more seriously instead of as nonchalantly as we do in this society, and if we took it more seriously, and if we saw it as a actual form of abuse, it may be something that we could warn people about to save them from other forms of abuse uh, that we could get people help for who were emotional abusers. We get people help for who were victims of emotional abuse. And we stop normalizing it so much. The thing is, it's been normalized. And now, if we talk about being emotionally abused or if you've been emotionally abused, people are saying, well, oh, it's just so long you can play the victim and all this kind of stuff. But really, you can be a victim for a long time if you don't know you're a victim. You can be a victim forever if you don't know you're one. And in the case of emotional abuse, because it's so subtle, many people don't know they're victims of it. It can start for most people in childhood, moms and dads, and the way mothers and fathers relate to one another, the way people's grandparents relate to their parents, um, the way friends relate to people, can all involve emotional abuse. And it's sad to me that people don't take it more seriously. The fact, uh, as I've said again and again, how subtle it can be, so subtle that you can be a victim for many, many years and maybe not realize it, or you can maybe think something is wrong, but you're not really sure. And in many cases, people give their loved ones the benefit of the doubt. Oh, they're just having a tough time. Oh, they're just sort of emotional. Oh, when things, but the thing about abuse, any kind of abuse, is that it has to be clear and consistent. And in the case of emotional abuse, there are lots of things that people do that would be emotionally abusive. We all have probably done something that would be deemed emotionally abusive on occasion. But the clear and consistent emotional abuse is something that makes it a form of abuse. And uh, what I'm seeing now is that since many people are not taking this subtle form of abuse more seriously, what is happening is that people end up in relationships where it's ramped up to verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. Um, all this week they've been talking about the Sandusky trial with a gentleman who was sexually abusing the boys in Pennsylvania at Penn State. And you must know that that started off with emotional abuse. And the reason it does is because you have to be made vulnerable. You have to be made susceptible to abuse. And emotional abuse is something that's done to help the abuser kind of push the person's self esteem and self confidence down. make the person kind of dependent on the abuser to feel better about themselves and stuff. And the abuser uses that to exploit their victim. And not all emotional abuse turns into um, verbal abuse or sexual abuse or physical abuse. Some of it just stays emotional abuse, which people stay in those kind of relationships for a long, long time, and suffer the kind of mental bashing that goes on in that for years. But many times it does, and you have to know that if someone's emotionally abusing you, they may ramp it up if they think that they can. You kind of test the waters. The abuser will test the waters to see how far they go, and then they go a little further and a little further. What's also happening is that many women who have been in physically um, violent relationships are now vulnerable. And what's happening is, instead, when they get out of those relationships, instead of them going into a healthy relationship, what ends up happening is they go and move into an emotionally abusive one. And they think that, well, since I'm not getting hit, that's a better relationship. That's a really good relationship. That's the kind of bar, and the bar is set kind of low, for someone who has been physically abused, to the point where they think, oh well, as long as I'm not getting beat, it's okay about the emotional abuse. It's okay with someone playing with my emotions. And I have a couple of blogs about emotional abuse, but one of my um, two that are really important, and I have links to those on this blog is on this blog post is the clandestine abuser, and oh no, am I being emotionally abused and I don't know it? And I think those are two good ones to read. I'm I'm not, you know, I'm not some therapist or something like that that can help people kind of get over all the issues that happen after you've been emotionally abused by someone. Um, you need to see a therapist about that, because there's lots of things that can come with having been emotionally abused: panic and anxiety, depression, uh, PTSD, in severe or milder forms and stuff. And you need to get some help for those. But I want to let people know um, not to take emotional abuse lightly. It's not this thing where people are trying to play the victim all the time, or it's not this thing where people are wanting to be a victim. No one wants to be a victim. And if you think someone is playing a victim, or you're a person that thinks someone wants to be a victim, I suggest you stop this thing, or stop this video that you're watching right now, and go away from here, because I don't want anything to do with you. You are obviously, something is desperately wrong with you, and I don't want to associate myself with someone like that. Uh, Being a victim of abuse is not something anyone asks for or anyone wants. Most of the time, people don't know that they are victims, and once they figure out what's going on, they can get out of the situation and get the strength and get the tools to get out of the situation. But if you don't know what's going on, if you don't know what's happening, you don't know how to get out of it. Personally, I'm also not an advocate for people who are abusers or them. I could care less about whether or not abusers get help. That is their problem. Let them figure that out on their own. I'm an advocate for people who have been emotionally abused and who are going through this. Um, I want to suggest that they get help or get the knowledge that they need to overcome this, and not end up in an emotionally abusive relationship again. As for the abusers, they're not the issue. The best thing you can do is just to get away from them and save yourself. And if you have children, save yourself and your children, and get away from this person. Um, you know, Emotional abuse is not benign. It is not harmless. It is very harmful. It is mentally harmful, and those mental that mental trauma can last for a long, long time. If you don't get help, or if you don't know you've been abused, you can just kind of end up in one emotional abusive relationship after the other. So I can suggest that you get help. For all the folks who are victims of emotional abuse, who know at some point that it was ramped up to some other kind of abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, know that if you know the signs of emotional abuse, if you know what they are, if you can recognize them, and because like I say, they're so subtle in most cases, you wouldn't recognize abuse may be happening, and many women are we're soft-hearted people, and we want to give people benefit of the doubt, and we usually do in the case of people that we love, but know that if someone has a clear and consistent pattern of emotional abuse, uh, that they're an abusive person and that they're not good for you, and that abuse may turn into something else. For the other women who may have been victims, also been victims of physical abuse and things like that, and who are out looking for relationships, I hope that you are in some kind of counseling right now so you don't end up in an unhealthy relationship. Just because someone isn't hitting you does not make that the end all be all of relationships. You have to have something more. And for folks who are wondering about what emotional abuse is, there are some great books about it. Let me go and get them. I've got some really great books that I've read. One is The Emotionally Abusive Relationship. Um, the Emotionally Abusive Relationship, uh, which is by Barbara Engel. It's a really good book. Um, also, um, Healing the Scars. Also, Healing the Scars of Emotional Abuse is also a good book about overcoming. It's by Gregory L. Jantz, PhD, also a good book. Um, I just want to kind of come on and just kind of let people know I want this thing recognized, and I want emotional abuse really recognized by more women. I see so many women who were like myself when I was in my relationship with my ex, my that emotional abuse, who are being emotionally abused and don't know it. They don't know the little the digs, the little things that they say and the things that they do. Um, and it's clear to me because I know now, because I've read books and now I've studied up on this thing, so I know now what the signs are and how to recognize it. But I want women to know this. So when you're in a relationship or you start a relationship with someone and you are thinking, something is wrong. And for many years, I always thought about my ex-husband, something is wrong here. What is wrong? But I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I just kept thinking, well, maybe I'm making too much of this, or well, he's having a hard time, or yeah, it's a lot of stress for him and stuff. And I couldn't quite wrap my mind around the fact also that someone that I love would do something like this to me, and stuff. So, I kind of always put it off and put it back. And, like verbal abuse and physical abuse and sexual abuse is so obvious, and stuff. You can't mistake those. But, you know, all this starting with emotional abuse, the one thing that's not that obvious, sometimes these sort of ramped up abuses could be prevented if people kind of knew what emotional abuse was and recognized it as emotional abuse instead of kind of excusing it as maybe a little bad behavior, or maybe they're just having a hard day, or maybe that's just a little temper thing, or it's okay, if I do such and such, they'll act right, and stuff, or they'll do, I need to do this or I need to do that, trying to placate them instead of you recognize that your needs are not being met and you're being emotionally drained and abused by this person. And, if I'd known what I knew now, I would have recognized it right off. But I'm glad I do know. And I'm trying to spread the word more and more. That's why I'm putting the names of those books up, and I'm talking about this again and again. And we'll be talking about this again to let women know, you don't have to put up with this sort of abuse, and you certainly don't have to put up with it and let it get to the next level or another level of abuse, because all abuse starts with emotional abuse, and it may stay at emotional abuse. That's bad enough, but it may go further than emotional abuse if you don't know what emotional abuse is and what it looks like. I'm hoping that, the references back to the other articles may help you recognize it. If you want to read those books, certainly read those books. There's some other books about emotional abuse also. You can certainly read and to recognize if you're maybe in a relationship with it, or if you just want some knowledge and just want to know before you start off dating, again, or back in relationships, so you can know what emotional abuse is. But remember, these things are clear and consistent. We do some of these behaviors that I've indicated in those articles. We all do some of them, every once in a while. But abusers do them all the time, and they're part of their repertoire to abuse people and to take away people's self-confidence so they can continue to abuse them. So, and I'm hoping you check those out and you read those. And I'm hoping that the word is spread more and more about emotional abuse and what it is, and even more about women understanding that, you don't have to be a victim. You can get the tools that you need to make sure that you don't become a victim of emotional abuse. I don't want anybody to go through what I went through, and I know people certainly don't want people to go through any physical or verbal or sexual abuse at the hands of someone who's just got issues and problems, who needs some help. You don't have to do that, and you don't have to, let your children or yourself become victims of an emotional abuser. You can prevent that and stuff, and you can stand up for yourself and get the things that you need from a relationship. Make sure that your needs are met and that you're not taken advantage of. I just wanted to just kind of say that on today's vlog. And again, I definitely hope that you check out the 2 blogs about emotional abuse, and that you also, if you need, read books and literature, and spread the word to other women that that emotional abuse is a real thing. It's not just someone trying to play victim. It's not in your head. You're not crazy. What you think is happening to you is probably happening to you and stuff. So don't let anyone tell you that it's not. Once again, thanks guys for joining me, and I'll see you guys later, and I hope you have a good rest of the week. I hope it's sunny where you are. All right, it's raining where I am. Okay, bye-bye.